Okay, if you remember, under that hole for the button notch, there was an extra notch cut. Under that notch for the buttonhole, there was an extra notch cut. Pretty much invisible. There's a hole there, hole here, down here, over here, up here, 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 and here. Practically invisible. You can still see the scratches that somebody made with a knife in the panel, but you can't really feel them, and the overlay will cover over that. Backside is fairly obvious. I didn't go to great lengths to make those smooth. In fact, I made them worse because I recessed there it is, recessed those holes because that's where the drill came out, and it had bits of metal sticking out. So this side I didn't attempt to make totally smooth, but I did on the ends because those are the parts that sit on the wood blocks of the panel, so those had to at least be recessed. They didn't need to be flush because the rest of the surface area will hold the weight of the panel, but they needed not to be sticking up. So yeah, painted it with Rust-Oleum satin black, and now I need to put the overlay on. Hey, look at that. I cannot see any evidence of holes coming through this overlay. Here you can still see some because I did try and pretty those up. I could have put a little filler material in there and those probably would have disappeared, but earlier video I think I said because the holes were drilled this way, the metal was kind of splayed out, so I went over it with a Dremel just to grind that down so there weren't sharp bits of metal sticking up, and so it caused those areas to be recessed a bit, which is why some of the holes have a bit of visible area around the repair. Other than that, pretty darn good. Blue tape. Let me explain the blue tape. I did this on a prior panel. These panels have a fairly sharp bend, right? On both ends, where that overlay has to cover that corner and you don't want it lifting up. So I did this outside, and it was like an 80-something degree day, so had the help of the sun heating the panel and the overlay as I was putting it on. But I did this on my last Asteroids Deluxe as like a temporary clamp, right? I put the blue tape across and it held the sticker down, and I think I put some clamps along the edge also. And it held it down really good. Same with this one. And I did it in a way that when you put the panel on the game, you can just leave this blue tape on. You can't see it. This gets tucked underneath, and this gets tucked between the plexi and the panel, so you don't see this blue tape. So I am, again, just going to leave that on as just kind of an extra support to hold that in place, keeping the overlay from lifting up. Yeah. So these are the original lit start buttons. These I ordered replacement white buttons. Then I had some leaf switch holders and PAL nuts and leaf switches in my spare parts. And the wiring harness is actually the original wiring harness for this panel. I gotta tighten this ground. It grounds to that part of the panel with no paint on it. I put that on there, but I didn't tighten it up. There was only this one right here. You can see the plastic wrapped wire. That one, the original connector had snapped off, so I crimped a new connector on there. And apart from that, all these connectors are original. Because this was set up for Miss Pac-Man, all it had was the 2 start buttons to start a game with no power going to the lights, just wires to the button part of it, because there's 2 wires for the button part and 2 wires for the light LED inside. And then they just used, I think it was the last 4 wires to go to the Wicco 4-way joystick, and then the other wire was just the wires were just like zip tied to the harness, so they actually didn't cut up the harness when they changed it over to Miss Pac-Man, which was nice, so I didn't have to locate or make from scratch a harness. So I still need to put some, I took the old adhesive off this, so I still need to put some double-sided adhesive, stick that down, tighten this up, and then it's pretty much done. I also painted call it the Marquee Bracket, even though the marquee is down low on the cabinet. The bracket that holds the plexiglass in place on the top of the cab, I painted that as well, and that's in the garage, drying a bit before I put that on. And then it'll pretty much be resizing the game to fit the monitor properly, because it's a little bit too wide an image currently. And then maybe pop the monitor out and go over the back of it and maybe reflow all the header pins. And that might be it. And then I can list it for sale, which really hurts because I've put so much time and money into this thing that I'd kind of rather keep this one than the one I currently have. But the one I currently have has an Asteroids Deluxe wiring harness in it, and it's just, I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough decision. I'm tempted to take the wiring harness and the board from this cabinet that I've spent so much time on and swap it with my other cab that I did spend time working on, but not nearly as much as this cab took, and just keeping like all the best parts in this cab that I put so much time in. But seriously, I'm okay with the cab I have, so I'm thinking of just listing this one for sale and just enjoying the fact that I took a butchered up Atari Cabaret and turned it back into a working game that it originally was.